Howdy, folks. Thanks for checking into eXhuming the X-Files every Friday here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. My name is Matthew, joined by Jeremy.
Hey, everybody.
And tonight, we are going to get real sweaty. We're going to suck some fat together, Jeremy. You excited about that?
God, I brought my straw. I brought my bucket.
Oils, grease, fat suck. Okay, this episode is Too Shy. It's episode 6 of season 3, directed by David Nutter, written by somebody named Jeff Vlomming. And I do remember this episode from when I was a kid. This is like a Tombs type episode, right? And for whatever reason, when X-Files casts these creepy, weird looking dudes that are just sucking strange bodily fluids out of you, it just sticks in my memory. I remember it. So how about you? Did you remember this episode?
Oh yeah, 100%. I remember this from the very beginning when they were in that shitty hatchback. I'm like, oh, I remember this being gross, and it was.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hit the prologue here. We're in Cleveland, Ohio. What's happening in Cleveland, Ohio?
Creepy dude is meeting kind of a chunkier chick on the edge of a lake in Cleveland in a tiny 2-door hatchback. She's like being romanced by him. They're gonna do something in this car, and she's pretty hot and heavy for him until she sees his horrible neck scabs.
Yeah.
Like he's right under the collar of his shirt. It's just this huge, irritated patch of skin. Pretty awful.
It's like the worst case of eczema you've ever seen.
But she realizes that she's a bigger gal, and this guy's, at least from the neck scabs up, is a fairly creepy but good looking compared to
guy. I mean, maybe he won't have the scabs on his dick.
Maybe. Maybe. And so she rolls with it. She decides, fuck it. And then they start kissing. She pulls away because all of a sudden something terrible is happening, and she has a mouthful of rubber cement just pouring out, like it's in her nose. Oh, it's so gross.
But it was disgusting. Yeah, I actively recoiled when I saw it, and with the music and with the look on this guy's face when he's like, "Ah!" I'm like, Jesus Christ! It looked like all the shit that's been coming out of my throat for the past week. It was gross, so gross.
But she gets attacked in the car, and then next morning, the cops are just rolling out to the same dock where that redheaded MUFON guy got abducted.
Yep.
Like, was it season 1?
Yeah.
They just they put cardboard boxes and trash everywhere to make it seem like it's not the same place. It's the exact same place. Just use the same crane. Just still.
There's only so many places in Vancouver, British Columbia that they can film at, so they got to recycle stuff constantly.
So, cop walks over, like, it sees this steamed up window, starts knocking on the window, like, hey, it's time to wake up, time to get going. But then what I found weird was he wipes the steam off the outside of it. Normally,
I thought that as well.
Even when it gets sweaty inside it's inside. We all know this.
Yeah.
And he wipes it off. He sees something horrible inside. And then he runs off to go radio in a dead body. We don't really see the dead body. We just zoom in on her little 4-leaf clover necklace.
Yeah.
And then we get the title screen. And I wrote, it's like, okay, we have a light rash on a neck. We have a mouthful of rubber cement, and they would not show the body. This must be one of those episodes where the budget is very tight.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, we're going to see a lot.
Yeah, it's sort of like applesauce and Benny's Bones.
I mean, that's something.
So we get the title screen. Then the cops call in Mulder because the body that they find is almost liquefied. Like, you see the skeleton through it. Everything just kind of looks like, ugh.
I
Hold
made a
on.
note here where another episode where the local cops call in Mulder and Scully based on their reputation alone. Because the cop is like, hey, I heard that you guys are experts in fatty sucking sort of stuff. Can you help us out? So we're back to again the reputation of our dear agents precedes them. It has sent them to Cleveland.
And Mulder just swoops in, takes a little vial, leaves this old cop that called him in completely mystified. Doesn't tell him fucking anything, and then just leaves.
Yeah.
Like takes a vial, bounces. Um, Mulder immediately jumps to the conclusion that this is a serial killer who killed 4 people in Mississippi.
Yeah.
But the goo part of it doesn't add up because in those bodies in Mississippi, there wasn't any goo.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting that Mulder never tells Scully anything until like they've already looked at a body. Like you would think if they're going like Scully would be like, "Well, Mulder, why are we being called over to Cleveland?" Whatever. You think in that car ride or that plane trip, Mulder would say, "Oh, by the way, Scully, just as some background of what I'm thinking here." No, he never says anything until until he
Okay,
takes the vial and walks. Oh, by the way, Scully, there's a fat sucker running around.
between eating sunflower seeds and telling her about the porn that he watched last night, they didn't have a whole lot of time to talk about
True, very true.
it. I immediately after he walks or he jumps to that big conclusion about the serial killer from Mississippi. I wrote that this episode is about the dangers of meeting strangers on the internet who liquefy you for your fat.
Yeah, and back when this came out in the mid 90s, that was a real fear. Like on the whole online thing and meeting people online and not really knowing who they are and stuff like that. It was a big thing back then. Still is to this day. I mean, if you watch any investigation discovery, there's always people being murdered off, finding people online and meeting them and stuff like that. So it's
I
still
think the
part.
number one way people are meeting other people that they're dating and getting married to right now is like by far meeting them through dating apps.
100%. And I had just a funny side story about that. I have a friend up in Omaha, and she messaged me a few months ago, and she's on some, I don't know if it's Tinder or whatever the dating application is that she's on, and she met a guy on this site who claims to know me, and she was like, "Hey, who this guy says he knows you. Can you vouch for this?" Because it was through movie stuff and whatnot, and I had to vouch for this person before she would go on a date with them because apparently he name dropped me to try to get with her all via online stuff. They didn't meet. It was weird. It was very weird. And now they're happily
Yeah,
ever
I
after
would.
so far. So it was good.
Well, good thing you pumped it, gassed him up, told her that he had that good dick. Let him go.
I said I vouch for him, and if he treated her in any way disrespectfully, he'd have to deal with me. And apparently, he's been very
Oh,
respectful for her.
nice. So we meet the killer. He's at his apartment. He's sitting on the internet talking to some other gal, doing the AOL instant messaging or email. They never really made it clear how he was meeting her,
Yeah. My note
but he's
here is his name is Virgil, right?
yeah.
Virgil. Now, when they show the actual computer screen, he's going by the online name Timid. But later on, they state that his online name is Too Shy, which is the title of the episode. But my note here, and I think I even messaged you this on Discord, I'm like, Virgil is sweaty in all caps, chatting with the online fatty. Those were my notes. He is just drenched in sweat,
Oh,
typing these like love letters to this high calorie
this
human.
big old smile on his face though, like he's so enjoying the hunt part of it.
Yes.
And all of a sudden somebody like beats on his door. He goes, he's pissed off that he has to go answer the door, and it's the landlady
Yeah.
saying that, oh yeah, we changed the mailbox keys out. She's clearly into him,
Yeah.
and she's not bad looking, but he shuts her down in like the meanest ways all throughout this episode.
Well, she's thin.
Yeah, but
He needs the fat, Jeremy. He needs the bigger girls to survive.
this is it's true, but there's like you could I don't know.
Look,
Like,
I mean, it's like, do I want a full meal or do I just want like one of those mini Mr. Goodbars or something like that? You want the full meal.
sometimes I want a Mr. Goodbar.
Fair, I guess. Fair.
So he just shuts her down. He's incredibly rude to her. And then
She's like, "Hey, I got some poems. Will you read them?" Because
yeah.
she thinks that he's a writer because he keeps getting all these weird Italian poetry books delivered to him, like pre-Amazon delivery.
And he's like, yeah, fuck, just slip it under the door. Just whatever. Leave me
Yeah.
the hell alone. Just doing the typical, I'm on the internet and I had my dick in my hand. You interrupted me.
Can you see how sweaty I am?
Yeah. But, people didn't know back then, so. Cuts to Scully. She's going to go do the autopsy on the girl who lost her life before the title screen. Or during the title screen, or whenever she actually died. The cop is there. And he's like, they take this time to show that he's like this old timey. Well, women shouldn't be doing a man's job, and
Yep.
You're a woman. You're probably compromised by this fat chick getting dead. Like,
yeah.
And she just very calmly like, I'll handle this.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of, even in the last episode with like the prisoners eye fucking her and whatnot, and just kind of treating her as a piece of meat. And then this one, you have the old cop, and I actually wrote this. This is how I paraphrased what he was saying. I'm not sexist, but you're a woman, and you can't be objective about women getting their fat sucked. that's how he comes across. But he kind of turns around later on. He's got an arc. He starts respecting her later on.
Sure. But he did begin that sentence with, I'm not sexist, but...
Yeah. But...
And then says this incredibly sexist shit.
Yeah, and you just see Gillian Anderson's face as she's like, oh, God, I got to deal with this every goddamn day.
Everywhere I go. But she dismisses him. She turns towards the cabinet or wherever they keep the body. She sees some seepage leaking out of where...
Seepage.
Leaking out of the cabinet. She's like, uh-oh. And she pulls the tray out, and it's Benny's bones and spiced applesauce. Like, all of the flesh has completely liquefied and is just laying... Give me...
Yeah.
Stop gagging, Jeremy. She's laying in this pile of fucking goo. That's so nasty. If it were real, can you imagine what that would smell like?
Oh, it would smell bad. Yeah.
Well,
at least she didn't take her finger and like take a taste. That applesauce tastes real good.
Stop it! So she calls in Mulder because he has to see this for herself, and she finds out that it's just stomach acid times 2.
That's funny because I was like, really? Times 2? I would say like times 1,000. Like stomach acid, I mean, it's strong, but I would think it would be a lot more to dissolve all of the soft tissues of a human body that quickly.
And then he asks her, find out, was there anything missing from the body? And as it turns out, all the organs, all the normal tissue, at least the signs of it shouldn't be there, but it's lacking fat. In fact, the skeleton was like 112 pounds or something like that, and this gal was 165 the last time that she was weighed. Yep. So we get to this really creepy scene where Mulder is interviewing that girl's roommate.
Oh, yeah.
About the text messages and letters that she was getting.
Yeah.
And that girl, she's hot. One, she has this husky voice where she's talking about the letters that she was getting. It's like, and I still have them. Like, you were just reading. It was turning her on. Like, this guy was so good at it that this other chick was falling for him too. It's like, I have those letters in a shoebox.
Yeah. She plays it very awkwardly.
Mhm.
She sounds like I do right now when she's ripping us
Well,
off. Well, Mulder's
eh,
into the women with the husky voices. 'Cause remember that chick from the first season, that from Britain or whatever, and she came over. She had like a husky voice too.
yeah, but she didn't look this good, so I'm
Okay,
I'm okay with the roommate. I'm
that's
weird.
good to know.
She is.
I'm glad you're okay with the roommate. You'd suck her fat.
Well, she didn't have much. I'll give it a shot. So, we find out that 165 is fat in 1995. Um, you have this, and then it cuts to this other victim that the killer is talking to through the internet. She has a concerned friend who's trying to convince this lovesick spinster not to go out
Yeah,
because there's a public warning that has gone out from the police in for women in Cleveland: do not meet dudes online.
right.
But she's like,
Proactive law enforcement. That's good.
but I have this hole that needs to be filled. So, but she decides not to do it, and we have this
Yeah.
scene where the killer is standing outside of a restaurant with these flowers, and he's pacing back and forth impatiently. He's clearly hungry. Realizes he's get stood up, throws the flowers into the gutter, and he's gonna go find a chubby hooker.
Like I laugh, but it's comedic as you're watching it. It's just like exactly what's going to happen going through, and it's just like the idea of this is so absurd. So absurd. Though I was watching this because I'm always watching these things as with like the filmmaker sort of like creative thing in my mind, and I was like, man, I wish this was like an R-rated film because I was like, can you imagine like him just whipping out one of these boobs and just sucking on it and it just
Ew,
deflates like it just
no,
it just deflates. That'd be an awesome visual.
get out of here. Get
What do you
out
mean?
of here,
Come on,
dude.
that would look cool, wouldn't it not?
Liquid.
Sucking
I would
all of
be
the fat right out of her boob.
I would be horrified. I would be genuinely
Exactly.
horrified.
Exactly. It would elicit like a physical response from the viewer. It would be awesome. I need to write a script doing that.
The pot calling the kettle black here, but Matt, you're weird. So
Leave a
he find
comment down below, folks. Do you want me to write the boob sucker script?
so he finds the right girl. They end up going to some alley. He immediately goes in for the rubber cement kiss, and she's like, "No, baby, we don't kiss, but anything
Yeah.
else is good." And he decides to shove her up against the wall and start forcing himself on her. She scratches him, and it just tears huge rakes of flesh out of his
Yeah.
hand. Like, she looks at her hand, and it looks like there's like an inch of standing flesh on the tips of each one of her fingernails. It's so gross.
Yeah.
But he gets on her mouth. He starts to devour her somewhat, but then a different hooker and a different John shows up to this very same alley.
That woman looked like a high class escort. She did not look like she would be hooking under a bridge in like crappy area of Cleveland. She was looking nice. I'm just
Yeah.
saying they had to go. They did some bad production design on this episode because the hookers didn't quite look like the caliber of hookers you would find in downtown Cleveland underneath a bridge. That's all I'm saying.
What do you got to say about Cleveland? Leave a
Look, man,
comment below if you're familiar with the Cleveland hookers and how good looking they are.
she looked like the Minneapolis hooker. She did not look like a Cleveland hooker. That's
Yeah,
all I'm saying.
it's some Lincoln, Nebraska. All right. So he ends up having to leave his mill a little bit early. She is dead, and she's starting to liquefy. But he ends up running away a little bit early. The cops get called in, FBI gets called in. You find out that the name of the hooker is Holly McLean.
Yeah.
Isn't that the name of John McClane's wife from?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
I just wrote that in there. You find that they find some of the communications on the receiving end of this particular guy, and he's using love language and quotes that are so rare that they pin it down that this guy has to have access to the sort of reading materials that only scholars would have, like a
Yeah.
professor or
Yeah.
a high-end student.
Got to be a smart fellow.
They find DNA underneath her fingernails and find that, or they they want to run it against the databases. And apparently, not only is there an offenders database, but there's a non-offenders database.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I think they just made it up. For some reason, we need to meet the landlady's daughter. There's this whole scene where the killer is in his apartment. He has to go sign for a package. In the hallway, he meets the daughter of the landlady, and she's blind.
Yeah.
The landlady comes out like a lovesick puppy again and starts talking to him. He's
She's just
even
dripping as
meaner.
she walks down the hallway towards this
Yeah.
guy.
She needs a dad for that little girl. So,
She needs. I don't think she's thinking about a dad at this point.
oh, okay.
She wants dick at this point, Jeremy.
Yeah.
You got to get the dick first, and then you become the dad.
She's looking for 12 inches and 4 inch stories. Yeah. So, he shuts her down even harder than he had before. He was really, really mean about it.
I
And
know. I
she
feel
even
bad for
makes
this
a
lady.
comment. I want to say she makes a comment like, why do I always like the bad ones or something like that?
Yeah, she tell. Oh, well, the girl, the blind daughter, was basically like, "Mom, why do you like this guy? He smells like dirty soap." And like all of this stuff, and the mom's like, "Why do you have to be so mean to this guy?" Like she's oblivious to the fact, or she recognizes he keeps kind of like turning her down, but she's not admitting it's because of anything she's doing. It's just because he's busy, right? He's busy. He's got all these things that he does. But the daughter right away knows that something's up. She's got the
Listen,
enhanced senses, right?
ladies, no means no. Ladies.
Yes, that's true. No means no.
So what they we, it's the yeah, the blind daughter thinks he's gross. The very next scene we find that they're running the DNA against a series of things to include the non-offenders database. I wrote that down like, what the hell is that? Is it just a voluntary thing where you're like, I'm never going to commit a crime, so here's a vial
Yeah.
of my semen.
Quick question. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, we would live in a society in which would allow something like this. And let's just say we could get everybody's DNA at birth, right? And you could immediately enter it into a database where I would say the vast majority of crimes, especially murders and things of that nature, you'd immediately know who the killer was. You just would, unless the killer went really out of their way to try to hide any DNA dropping anywhere across the scene of the crime. Would you be okay with a society sort of saying, no, we're putting everyone's DNA in this database?
No.
Uh, okay, okay. I'm just curious because I've heard other friends of mine say, well, absolutely. And then I've heard another friend of mine say, no, if you had children, you would say absolutely no to something like that. So it's curious. Leave a comment down below, folks. What kind of society would you like to live in?
Yeah, are
Every-
you right or are you wrong? But they do find that the DNA is short of fat. And so we get the Mulder leaping to a conclusion that because the DNA they found is short of fat, it must be some sort of monster or vampire that is feeding off of fat.
yeah, leaping to the correct conclusion.
Yeah, just
That's
the
where
guy's
Scully.
batting 1,000.
That's where Scully does have that great line. Because Scully's like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, there's not people that suck the fat from other people." And she's like, "A fat sucking vampire? Is that is that
Yeah,
what we're investigating?" Yes, woman. Yes.
that's what we do. And so they find the short list of people that would have access to those particular books that he was getting the quotes from. All of the cops and the FBI are going and knocking on door to door. Um, the cop, ye old cop, ends up going to directly to the killer's apartment. And once he walks in and sees the scratches on his hand, he knows, and the killer knows.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Weren't you talking about that guy had some sort of redemption arc?
Yeah, because remember, Scully Scully asks him, "Hey, I want to present to the entire law enforcement agency here all of these findings, blah blah, if that's okay." And then he looks at her and he's like, "Yeah, that would be okay." That's him like moving away from sexism to not being sexist. That's his arc.
He gives a woman permission to something or to do something she should have been doing anyway. That's his.
That's his redemption arc, Jeremy. He was established as a sexist, and then
Okay.
he sees the light and says, yes, even though you are a woman, you can go ahead and do what
All
you
right,
should be
man.
able to do.
All right. Well, this is why this dude ends up in a tub, partially liquefied.
Yeah.
Um. God, where was I in my fucking notes? I need to number these notes sometimes. I get to talking to
There
you and just
two
losing my place.
Too Shy meets up with that chick again because she stood him up and then she decides, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go meet up with him. Buys him
And
dinner.
and then right as he's like closing the deal, like convincing this girl, yeah, it's time for you and I. He does the same thing he does at the beginning of the episode. He flashes his rash at her.
I know.
Why? Like, other than we need to see it, does he have some sort of kink where he has to watch these hefty girls' faces, like see that he has this horrible skin disorder, but they just accept that they can't get any better than this, so they just do it anyway? Like, is that his thing?
The guy's creepy looking. He's creepy acting. I would not put it past. But your phrase just made me think that this would be a really good sort of public service announcement, like for STD stuff, right? Like flash the rash. Let people know you got something weird, then flash your rash. I think we're onto something with that.
Matt,
Flash the
nobody's.
rash.
Where are the rashes at, Matt? You start pulling your genitals out at the restaurant, you're going to jail. Or you're going to end up on a list. You can't live near the schools. Like, come on, man.
Flash the rash, man. It doesn't have to be in the public place, but they're in a car at that point in time, right? Flash the rash.
Yeah.
He should just take it all off and let her know, like, look, you're going to be getting pieces of me all over yourself. So are you okay with that?
I can see how it goes. Hey, before this goes any further, would you put on the dome light, please? I have some bumps you should look at. All right. So and they never address it. I don't see what it was all about, but they go back to his place because he's going to do this chick at his apartment, and the landlady like goes inside, or while all this is happening, the landlady goes inside of the killer's apartment
Yeah,
to
breaking and
drop off.
entering.
Well, I mean, you've rented, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just fucking show up, whether they said they were going to be there 24 hours or not. But she had permission to, put the poems there. So she goes inside. She sets down the little manila envelope. They had two flies from the previous episode that weren't dead yet. And they just drop it on there. And so they use that as her discovering the dead body of the cop who's partially digested in the tub.
Yeah.
While she's exploring this apartment, he's, trying to seal the deal in the car. And again, getting back to this thing that they never really talk about, the four-leaf clover on the pendant of the girl in the very first thing, and the girl, or Ellen, that's her name, the girl he's after right now, has a lucky rabbit's foot on her keychain. I
I don't
don't
even think I
know.
noticed that. Yeah, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. I noticed really
Observant.
stupid shit. So,
Yeah, you're very observant.
but while he's about to seal the deal, and she's waffling. She wants that strange, even she wants them bumps.
I just
But
had a horrible, horrible thought. I'm not even going to say it. Go ahead. Keep going.
why are you gonna the audience wants to know?
Okay. I feel horrible for even thinking this, but like, she's waffling, can't decide. It's like she knows, trying to decide if she wants waffles or him.
Oh,
You use the word waffling.
Ouch.
You're using these words seepage and waffling. It's just
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's getting my mind going places it shouldn't go.
But while he's offering this gal breakfast and penis, he sees a light, or in his apartment, he sees somebody moving around in his apartment. He sees the landlady through the window, and he's like, "Okay, well, this isn't fucking working. So you don't want this penis? I'm just gonna leave."
Very abrupt.
Right as she finds the dude in the tub, his creepy ass just like side saddles out of a door and finds him, or
Yeah.
finds her, finds the discovery. He doesn't leap at her, he doesn't kill her on screen, but is implied that happened.
Yeah. And my note says Too Shy sucks her fatties
Yeah,
off camera. And
yeah,
if we had a rated R movie, Jeremy, you could have seen that in great detail.
yeah. I mean, he would have been sucking the cheeks of that fucking cop. We could have watched that too.
He has his Mr. Goodbar. I mean,
He has like 5 Mr. Goodbars in that. Yeah, okay. Anyway, the blind girl, for some reason, like, my mommy didn't come home. I'm gonna go visit the guy that smells like stinky soap and ask him where's my mom. And she comes into the apartment, and like she clearly, her sense of smell is almost superhuman, but she doesn't notice that it smells like rotting bodies, at least right away.
Mhm.
But then she realizes that there's something awful going on. That it's probably her mom's dead body, and she leaves. She stumbles into this suitcase for no fucking reason, and like feels it all up. And it goes to this whole thing like, I'm gonna be going to Chicago or New York or some shit for a few days, so I'll be gone soon. Completely pointless that they said they didn't need to say any of that.
Well, he's on his way out of town, right? He's gonna like leave at this point, is what I assumed, because the too much heat is on him at this point. There's too many missing women around this guy. Did you think that he just said that because he was trying to?
Too many missing women around this one guy.
I think there's. I
He
mean,
didn't.
they're already on to him, aren't they?
No.
Okay, then I
Well,
take.
okay, no, because the cop. Yes, no, you're right, because there's a dead cop in the tub. I'm
Yeah.
wrong. I'm wrong, Matt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He liquefies a cop in a tub and then packs a bag and then kills mom or the landlady, and then doesn't kill the daughter. The daughter immediately goes downstairs, calls the police to report a murder.
Yeah,
The
why do you
cops
think he
show
doesn't kill the daughter? Like at this point, he's already fucked. So why would he leave this witness?
scruples, I guess,
Oh yeah, he got
or
my.
they're just not gonna. Chris Carter is just not gonna have to take it to Fox and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
you mind if we liquefy a little girl?
That's probably the reason. Yeah.
She's blind, and she
Yeah.
just lost her mom." No, probably not. So, but she calls it in. The cops and the FBI show up, and they do it all wrong. They kick in his door with a shotgun, and immediately, like, this fucking hero cop comes rolling in the front door with a pistol, like right in front of the barrel of that shotgun. I'm sorry, but when you're breaching a room with a scatter gun like that, that guy stays in front, and everybody with like the slightly inaccurate handguns are behind him. Because if that guy starts ripping with that thing, he's just as likely to hit you as he is to hit anybody else. But they bust open the door, they do it for the camera shot, but this weirdo just immediately jumps into the room in front of the shotgun.
Yeah.
I was mad about that.
Sounds like it.
They find that there's they find the cop in the tub, they find the landlady, they go and talk to the poor blind daughter who has nobody now, and then
I
she
thought
has
that little girl did a good job.
yeah, she
She did a really
acted
good
well,
job. Yeah.
but they just immediately abandon her. Like, all
Yeah.
right, kid, well, Scully makes vague reference to some lady that they've never mentioned before in the episode is going to watch her. But why didn't blind girl just go to that lady in order to find out why her mom wasn't home yet.
Yeah, and she says right that she knew that something happened to her mom in there because she could smell her mom's perfume in his house.
Oh, I didn't. I remember hearing the word smell, but I didn't catch perfume.
Yep, yep, because her mom left with wearing perfume, and then when she walked into his house or whatever, or when he opened the door or something, she could smell it, and that's why
Uh,
she called 911.
they get his computer. They recover his files. They decrypt his files. They find the names of all of the people that he's been talking to, his next victims. They start cold calling a bunch of people in the middle of the night. Uh,
What an awkward conversation that would be.
hey,
Like
this
you
guy you've been talking to, turns out he has bumps on his crotch. So, but they find, or I don't even know why they specifically, no, they target Ellen. Why do they go to Ellen's house?
um, no, but they go to. Why do they go to Ellen's house? So yeah, because basically he shows up, he shows up at her house. He's like pleading with her, "Let me in, let me in."
She
Um,
doesn't want to fuck him, but she lets him in anyway. It was like,
yeah, she's like, ah, gosh, but she can't make up her mind, and she makes the wrong choice. But in the middle of them having coffee or something, um, she goes back to her bedroom, gets online, and sends a text to her friend or an email to her friend, I guess, at that point, basically saying, "Oh my God, you have no idea. I'm about to get dicked. I'll let you know in the morning how it was." And then sees the email from
from the FBI.
from the FBI. But yeah, how do they know that he's over there? I know there's some sort of sequence where Mulder and Scully figure it out, but I can't remember off the top of my head exactly how they figured that out.
Probably leaping to wild conclusions and or voodoo got them to the apartment.
Yeah, voodoo.
Um, they find that the Ellen, or they had got there
Oh,
just in time because. Go ahead.
I remember. She was the only person I think that they couldn't reach. They could not because they contacted everybody else, but they couldn't
Okay.
contact her, and then that's when they went over to her place.
And then they find her. She's not quite. She's just begun, very barely begun the digestive process, but she's still breathing. Mulder sees somebody running down the street out of the house, so he leaps out of the house, leaves Scully to do, you know, not mouth to mouth resuscitation or anything,
Oh
but
God.
but to watch her. For some reason, Scully leaves her gun on the ground next to Helen to go find medical supplies to see if she can't, because she calls it in. She says, bring the chemical department. We have to treat this girl, blah, blah, blah. But she goes and like finds some Vaseline, but she leaves her gun on the ground, which I don't think an FBI agent would ever do, particularly not her.
Yeah.
But as she's surfing around underneath the sink and in the medicine cabinet for things to help out with, the killer jumps out of the shower because he was in the shower in behind the curtain the whole time.
Yep.
She gets a couple of licks in, whoops his ass a little bit,
Yeah, I
but
wrote down
eventually,
Scully with some ninja moves.
yeah, yeah, some little jujitsu, little, but he still gets her pinned down, and she ends up like reaching out and grabbing a tiny pair of scissors, stabs him. He backs off from her, and then Ellen shows up with Scully's piece and just
Yeah.
blasts.
Shoots him in the shoulder. That's what always happens in these. Like they don't actually kill these people outright. They just shoot them in the shoulder, and that immediately knocks them out. Um, until we get see what happens with him at the end here.
I didn't write down most of the speech. I'm going to be honest with you. He looked creepy, and I think they were trying to do this Scully Wade Boggs moment from uh, Beyond the
Beyond the Sea.
Sea, and I think it just kind of fell flat. There was one line that I liked: "I gave them what they wanted; they gave me what I needed." That was creepy enough, but everything
Yeah.
else in the scene, it's just kind of a parting shot between the killer and between Scully.
Yeah, because she's like, "How could you be such a monster to these women?" And he's like, "Look, like it's not actually explained. Is he sucking their fat to cure his like eczema type stuff, or does he actually have to suck the fat to survive?" Because at the end of the episode, his whole face is completely covered with the rash. And so I would imagine his entire body is that way. But is he going to die now, or do they have to? I don't know. How do you feel that goes? Because it's not made clear exactly what he needs. Like when they talked about tombs had to have a certain amount of people, right, to go into hibernation and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. It's not exactly clear what happens to this guy if he stops sucking fat, other than he gets really flaky skin.
Like, okay, yeah, I mean, yeah,
I'm
no,
just
they don't.
asking you, what do you think happened here?
What he enjoys the hunt. He enjoys being the sexual, well, quasi sexual predator. He probably doesn't actually. You know what? I don't even want to think about what he's doing with them goo piles.
But like but
Satan forbid.
earlier on in the episode, his face is not like flaky or anything like that. You see parts of his arm, little bits of glimpses, and his neck
Yeah,
and stuff, but why is his face perfectly fine? Is the rest of his body completely rashed out? Or does he have to suck the fat to heal himself for
yeah.
whatever period of time?
No, he absolutely is consuming the fat in order to beat back whatever the infection is. But like, is there any end? Is it a Tombs like he has 7 livers and he disappears for 40 years? No, no, he's just going bouncing from place to place to place, curing his eczema. He never thought to do pull like a Fight Club where you just go to a liposuction clinic and just take their bags of fat.
That's a good idea. I hadn't even thought of that either.
No,
Okay.
no, he was on the internet talking to fat chicks, which is more rewarding in the end.
I did like the line she lets him into her apartment and she gets him something, a coffee, makes him a coffee, and she's like, "Milk? I only have not fat." I was like, "That's a nice little line for this episode." But yeah, that's Too Shy. Your thoughts on this?
I it was it was one of those creepy episodes. It was very reminiscent of Tombs, though it wasn't anywhere near as smart as Tombs was, either of them. But I enjoyed it. I really thought the fucking liquefaction of the bodies was super gross and probably one of the grossest things I've seen on X Files so far. So that was super enjoyable. I just thought that right at the end, right as they're reaching the goal line with that speech and the parting shots between Scully and the killer, that it wasn't, the dialogue should have been better. It should have been
Yeah,
haunting
yeah.
almost. Instead, it just kind of fell flat.
Okay. I like this episode. I thought that this is a really cool sort of monster of the week sort of thing. I love it when X Files does these gross, nasty, freaky dude episodes. I don't know what that says about me, but I just think it's really, really cool. I thought that the victims of this guy, I thought they played it really, really well. I actually felt bad for this main lady. Like she just played it, really real, and in a way in which I don't want to cast aspersions on this actress or anything, but she played it in such a way in which you could be like, yeah, I think it would be kind of hard for this woman to find someone who likes her, you know, um, if that makes sense. I don't mean that in a negative way, but she just played it that way, and I thought it worked really, really well. Um, yeah, I just thought this was so gross. It was so disgusting. It made me feel gross and dirty. But sometimes the X Files episodes need to do that, and I appreciate when they show up. So yeah, I'm a fan of Too Shy. Some fun facts about this. Let me scroll down here. The substance secreted by Virgil and Canto was mainly a veterinary product called J-Lube, mixed with some food products to make it essentially edible, albeit not very pleasant. So there you go, Jeremy. J-Lube.
I'll have to look into that one day.
Too Shy was written by Jeff Vlaming, who had previously worked for the series Weird Science. Vlaming's only other writing credit for the series was the later third season episode Hell Money. He had initially pitched the idea of a mutant who fed on body oils, which was eventually changed to body fats. The presentation of the character Virgil in Canto also went through several permutations, initially conceived as a creepy Phantom of the Opera like recluse, and as a butcher who would be able to cut the fat from his victims before the final, fairly normal looking version was decided upon. That's interesting to me.
Jesus Christ, that would have been a
Yeah.
gruesome
Yeah.
episode.
Director David Nutter, excuse me, made sure that the episode contained several visceral moments after the popularity of the Fluke Man character in the earlier episode, The Host. Frank Spotnitz, the series story editor, was initially wary of the concept as he felt it might seem offensive, but changed his mind when series creator Chris Carter convinced him the episode told, quote, a good story, unquote, and was a, quote, fun, old-fashioned sort of X-File, unquote. The episode was primarily filmed in Vancouver's Quebec district, or Quebec Street, excuse me, with two nearby apartment buildings used for the interior shots. Too Shy marked the debut of Steve Kiziak as Duchovny's new body double. While filming a scene in which Mulder bursts through a door, Kiziak and the other body doubles mistakenly burst through the wrong apartment's door, interrupting a tenant's dinner party. That would have been amazing. That would have been incredible. And then Carrie Sandormiski, who portrays Ellen Kosminski's friend Joanne, had previously appeared in the first season episode Roland, while Encanto's landlord, who played by Glynis Davies, who had appeared in season one's Tombs and the second season episode Irresistible. So the landlord lady was actually in Tombs and Irresistible previously. So there you go, folks. If you like to suck fat, hit that like and subscribe. We'll be back next week with another episode called The Walk. Until then, thank you for listening, and we'll see you then.